Nubia, be yourself.
Hi guys, this is gsmno.com and I'm here with a review of the Nubia Focus Pro 5G, a pretty interesting mid-range handset that looks like a bit of a camera phone, and somehow it wants to deliver with a 108 megapixel main camera. Okay, so 2024 is an expansion for Nubia in Europe, and it's here with a few devices, including gaming ones like the Nubia Red Magic, but also this one. The price should be around 400 euros. It stands out to the quality, storage, UFS 3.1, also a pretty nice looking design, and I would say an unusual CPU. You don't see unisoc CPUs these days, and I'm actually curious how it will perform. So let's get started with the design. First of all, the device will draw quite a few looks through the back side. The camera module is huge here, and it takes up most of the top 1/3 of the device. So we also have a glitter effect here on the glass back side, or my guess is actually should be plastic, and it's quite a massive device at 8.1 millimeters in thickness, and the weight goes past 200 grams, which is quite a hefty device. It has some extras here, so aside from the volume buttons on the side here and the red power button, it has this extra slider button, which is now used to trigger the camera, but it's only one of the features you can associate to it. It's a very flat device, flat at the front, flat at the back side, also flat frame, which feels rather heavy and rather massive. It's quite a long phone, wide and pretty thick, but the weight is very well distributed. That's one of the pros. It has personality, it's tough, and it comes with a bundled case made of polycarbonate. I would say it's pretty well built. Not sure about the protection of the screen, but what's lacking is definitely IP certification. On the display front, we're seeing here a screen which is meant for multimedia consumption. It's got a rather generous diagonal, 6.72 inches, Full HD plus 120 Hz, and has some pretty narrow bezels, I would say. It's an IPS LCD, by the way, not an AMOLED. Now I'm going to put it to the test like this, and this is what the experience is like. It's been a while since I last saw a phone with an IPS LCD instead of an AMOLED, so here we are. The colors are more tempered compared to an AMOLED, not as vivid, but still better calibrated and more realistic. Decent view angles, I would have to say, not as wide as some of the phones we've tested recently, to be honest, but still quite decent. The contrast also decent in the summer sun, and well, that's about it. Let's see how it did in our tests. I'm going to start off with the lux meter test. We achieved a level of 424 lux units, which is definitely not a record. It has a company of phones here like the old UC6, Huawei Mate 8, which are kind of old. So at least it goes above the threshold of 400 lux, which used to be a landmark in our test. So with this value here of 424 achieved with this handset, we surpassed these handsets here that include the Nubia Red Magic 6 Pro, some of the older Nokia Lumias, the iPhone 7 Plus, and even the iPhone 12 Pro Max. There aren't many recent models here nowadays. Phones have gotten very bright, so keep that in mind. Maybe the Galaxy S20 Plus is one of the more recent ones. Brighter phones, where there's galore here, including all sorts of Redmi Note 13s, 12s and 11s. Okay, so this is the screen. At least we have the 120 Hz thing going for us for the gaming. And now we go inside the phone for a pretty unusual CPU. We don't see it every day. It's an Unisoc Tiger T760. It's a 6 nanometer CPU with a setup which is an octa-core one, 4 cores Cortex A55, 4 cores Cortex A76. Aside from that, we're also getting 8 gigs of RAM, but you can supplement them by up to 12 gigabytes extra from the RAM expansion feature. UFS 3.1 storage is, as you can see, 256 gigabytes. There's no micro SD, just so you know. Now, the performance should be, I would say, decent here. Didn't encounter any lag in day-to-day use, but it's definitely not a gaming phone. So yeah, there's that. Now let's see how it handles a, well, throttle test. We have here the screenshots, and let's check it out and find it. This is the throttle test, and we lost 12% performance after 15 minutes, which is not exactly bad. Now let's see how we did in the benchmarks. We start off with Antutu 10. Here we are, just above the Nokia XR21 and the Infinix Note 40 Pro 4G. I was expecting for it to compete with that. By the way, it also surpasses the Moto G84 and the Oppo A98. So yeah, it's got that going for it. Now we have here Geekbench 6 multi-core, where it goes above the Realme 12 Pro Plus and also above the Realme 11 Pro Plus plus the Moto G54. In the single core test, it went above the same Infinix as before, and it also surpassed the Moto G53. In the same multi-core sub-test here, you can see that the result is not exactly impressive, even though it's a lower phone. It's below the Honor Magic 6 Lite, Motorola Edge 40 Neo, Oppo Reno 11F, and a few other phones from the lower echelon. Okay, so let's see how we did in the graphical department. People are curious about the GPU. 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme were above older phones like the Redmi Note 11 Pro, the first Motorola Edge. So yeah, there's that. Let's see which other handsets we're beating. We're towards the lower part of the standings. We're beating the Oppo A98, which is a bit more recent, and the Nokia X30 and XR21, but we're below handsets like the first OnePlus Nord, Vivo V21, or the Galaxy A53. So there you have it, sort of a low mid-range affair, fighting phones from 2 years ago rather than current mid-range phones or phones from last year. The T760 isn't that bad of a CPU from Unisoc, and I'm curious about its behavior when it comes to temperature. We achieved 35.6 degrees Celsius in benchmarks, and in games 27.5. Definitely it doesn't overheat. On the battery front, we have a 5000 mAh unit with 33 watts charging and a charger in the box, and let's see how it handled our tests. In the video playback, we have 14 hours and 57 minutes, just 1 minute shy of the Honor Magic 4 Lite. I have to say this is not exactly impressive nowadays. Most companies are breaking the 20-hour threshold, which makes this device look not that impressive. Okay, so 14 hours and 57 minutes. We're above the likes of the Moto G32, Oppo Reno 4 Lite, and Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus 5G. But we're below 258 other phones like the Poco F4, Poco X3 NFC, Poco M3, bunch of Oppo Renos, and definitely a lot of Realmes, which usually stand out of the crowd with this area. Continuous usage also not exactly impressive, 8 hours and 54 minutes in PC Mark, above phones from 3-4 years ago. Let's see which other models we have surpassed. So we're beating the likes of the Nokia 5, which is pretty old, Galaxy S20, ZTE Nubia N1, Lenovo K6, so yeah, older phones here, not exactly new ones. Also Galaxy S21 Fan Edition, so that's got to count for something. In the meantime, there are phones which can almost double this amount. Like for example, let's see here, the Huawei Pura, for example, the Vivo Y20, OnePlus 8 can double the amount of time achieved here. The charging requires 1 hour and 27 minutes. After 30 minutes, you're set with 45%. So I would say a pretty modest behavior, but should be decent for the average day-to-day user. Now let's talk about the acoustics. I have to mention we only have one speaker here. It's the one here at the bottom side, and let's see how it delivers the sound. So we go here, we have a sound test, and here it is. Okay, so a decent bass, I would say decent volume as well, not bad. I didn't notice any distortion here, even though if you listen to guitar-heavy songs, you may experience that. Treble, not that good, in my opinion, but the voices were decent in podcast. So decent is the word that comes to mind. Actually, you'll see that the results in our tests were actually quite good, above expectations. So yeah. Once again, we only have a bottom speaker here, so the only relevant test is the bottom one. 88 decibels achieved. It's actually quite high. Usually we get 84, 85, things like that. Okay, so let's see which models it was able to beat with 88 decibels achieved at the bottom side. I see that it surpasses the likes of the, let's see something more recent here, Realme GT3, the Motorola Edge 50 Fusion, which is recent, and also the Realme 10 4G. Not bad, considering we've tested 600 phones and this is in the 135th spot. It's doing fine. It's below the Huawei Nova 11 Pro though, and also below the likes of Nokia X30 and Moto G52, to mention a few models here. But in the end, not a bad result. In gaming, 87.1, this is actually one of the lowest results ever. It's at the bottom of the ranking. Usually we require 100 here, so we're very far from achieving a record. I would say it's better suited for music, which is bass heavy, rather than gaming or rather than TV shows. So Yeah, it's close to the bottom here, as you can see for yourself. It beats older models, Galaxy 35, Moto G14, but there are 400 phones better at music than this one. And now let's talk about the camera, which could end up being a selling point. Okay, so camera time. So at the front side we find here a cutout for a camera in the punch hole. It's a selfie shooter with a 32 megapixel resolution. And at the back side we find the triple camera, with the star of the show being the 108 megapixel shooter. We also have a 2 megapixel bokeh camera and a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, which is capable of macro. This whole ensemble shoots in 4K 30 frames per second. And this budget phone has the following features. We have a portrait mode with a beauty feature, we have a night mode, we also have a video which has a special stabilization anti-shake mechanism, and once again 4K capture. Plus, once again, the photo department with extra settings and options like a grid and gradient. You can take full 108 megapixel shots. There are street areas here with lens choices and filters. And finally the camera family, which I also saw on the gaming Nubia smartphones, with star trail, electronic aperture, light draw, and monocolor, and so much more. Okay, so those are the options. Let's talk about the actual pictures. I don't know if you have a dedicated gallery app, but I'm going to rely on Google Photos for now. Okay, so these are the pics we've taken with a focus on close-ups. Let me start off by talking about the selfies. So we employed the 32 megapixel camera on this device to take selfie shots, and these are fine as long as you're not zooming into them. We have several more selfies here. The bokeh is pretty well applied, I'll give it that much, and I recommend you use it because it highlights the face and the traits of the face. And when there's a lot of sun in the background, bokeh will calm it down. Now, other features worth mentioning here is that actually analyzed the potential of the colors here, which aren't exactly bad. There's some overexposure here and there, but this is to be expected for the current price. This is the vegetation which may get overexposed. You should also be patient with the camera, let it take the shot, otherwise it can end up being moved. Once you're doing the ultra wide shots, you're going to lose some details, that's for sure, on account of the raw resolution. And let's see some colors here. We have all the colors covered in this fence. Once again, if you're doing ultra wide, you're going to lose details, but at least the colors don't change that much. And since the ultra wide camera can also do macros, we went really up close with some of the areas here, with some of the flowers, for example. With the strong sun above us, there was some overexposure and oversaturation here and there for sure, and I didn't exactly get as close as I wanted to create a proper macro. You can see here. There are some impressive details, but you did have to take a bunch of shots, consecutive shots, to get a proper one, and to get one which is calibrated in both exposure, details, and colors. The zoom isn't that impressive, it's just digital. I would say stick to about 3x and then expect a lot of noise. Okay, so these are more shots that we've taken here. I have to be honest, I expected even more overexposure and oversaturation. This is actually not bad compared to the expectations I had in my mind for a cheaper phone with an Unisoc processor. The colors are pretty correctly shown here. On such a sunny day, I expect it to be a phosphorescent green, a cyan, or things like that. So yeah, it's only afar that you can see the overexposure which appears in the summer. So overall, pretty decent for $400. We talked about everything, macro, close-ups, and so forth. I would say this is closer to a Moto G54 maybe, Redmi Note 13, things like that. That's the level it's at. When it comes to the night time, well, believe it or not, I actually enjoy this as well. So let's take it one by one. These are actually photos taken with this phone, which actually surprised me. I like them more than I expected. Of course, those without the ultra wide or the zoom, those with the main camera actually deliver. Like this one here is good enough for a postcard. Colors are spot on, there's plenty of detail, they're actually satisfying. And the light sources will be toned down once you activate the dedicated night mode. If you're not enjoying the light sources, you can definitely tone everything down once you activate that special mode. So in the end, not a bad nighttime capture, perhaps even more impressive than the daytime one, because expectations were set lower here, and even the selfies were fine if you look at the texture of the skin and the hair and the details, and even more shots here. One would say that this is a set of pictures taken with a phone that's double the price, which is not the case, so that's pretty impressive. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the videos, and for that I think I'm going to employ a dedicated application. Okay, so let's see this selfie video, typical for TikTok. I would say that it's a bit grainier than I wanted and not very well stabilized, so definitely not vlogging material and a lot of exposure in the background, but let's see more. This is a focus test, alternating between the foreground and the background. Takes a bit to focus, but in the end, the result gets pretty snappy once you get the ideal distance. Not the best focus I've seen, but decent in the end. Okay, let's see some other vids. Definitely have a stabilization test here. You can surely feel every step we took, left, right, but at least the image doesn't vibrate and doesn't drop quality. I'm actually surprised that we are getting 4K capture considering the CPU. Okay, maybe this time with a bit more color. The colors are fine, they feel a bit more washed out than the photos, I have to give it that much. They're still pretty well kept in check, I don't see any overexposure, but the stabilization doesn't quite deliver to my expectations. And we also have this bit of panning. Even the panning seems to lack stabilization, so yeah, you can definitely feel every subtle movement of the hand. And here once again, the definite test is this one, where we activated the special stabilization mode, and things are a bit calmer this time, so thank God for this special stabilization mode. Of course, there are limitations when it comes to nighttime filming, which is this one here. Big halos, reflections, some grain here and there, and the image is grayish a bit, but once again to be expected for the price you're paying. We have even more videos here, like maybe this one. Of course, stabilization is out of the question during the nighttime, so yeah. Okay, we're pretty much done with the camera. Now let's talk about other aspects, like for example connectivity. The phone provides 5G connectivity, that's for sure, and I should probably also mention that it has Wi-Fi dual band, and it comes with GPS, Bluetooth 5.2 and a USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom. There's NFC, and I don't see an infrared emitter at the top, so yeah, there you have it. Now we also did a bunch of tests, better said speed tests, and let's see how those panned out. We achieved 257 MB/s in download and 24.8 MB/s in upload on Wi-Fi, and we'll be back with more for the 5G test pretty soon. Okay, now aside from that, it's time to talk about the software experience and finally the verdict. Okay, so just so you know, there are compromises made, and they include the version we have here. It's Android 13 with MyOS 13 applied on top, and as you can see here, we have the RAM expansion feature by up to 12 GB. It's a pretty typical interface, I would say, for a smartphone from China. We have an aggregator here of recommended apps and news. We're using swipes to navigate around. This is the recents area with the ability to do split screen for applications. You can pitch the screen to trigger the customization of wallpapers, widgets, effects, and more. You can go here to personalization and have your fun with the themes, wallpapers, lock screen settings, daily wallpapers, color and shapes, animations, and even a font. These are some of the icons you'll be exploring. Swipe down and rotate to the quick settings and notifications. While the settings area doesn't hold any secret feature, we have connectivity options, personalization, home screen, notification, something called Sync Mind. And Sync Mind includes the 5G smart communication here, and Live Island. Live Island is basically your version of the function from the iPhones, which shows an image here at the top side around the capsule, the dynamic island or whatever they call it, and it's called a capsule on Realme phones and on other handsets out there. I'm looking for the clock, because if you set a timer here, like brush it and start it, you're going to see it here, which is also useful to expand notifications, the same area here. So yeah, That's what the features in the settings was all about. And then we have the fingerprint scanner, which should be embedded here in the side button, which is quite fast and accurate. You have here the password and security area. You can also set face recognition, have storage options here. We have battery options. There's the privacy area with Android System Intelligence, privacy dashboard, safety and emergency, and system and update. As far as the pre-installed apps goes, I saw that we have some games here. We have Facebook, we have a file manager. We also have a voice recorder, TikTok, and WPS Office for productivity. By the way, we also have a cleanup tool here, which allows you to clean the resources for a better management of the handset's resources. I'm surprised that considering how trendy it is nowadays, we are not also getting we are also not getting a gaming app or features of some sorts. Okay, apparently it wants all permissions here. Maybe this time it will work. Clean the junk files, app data, large files, video cleanup, audio cleanup, and more. That's what this tool does. Aside from that, you can see here the app drawer, some hot apps, hot games, the Google Suite, and a file manager. That's it in a nutshell. This is a budget phone and it's time for its verdict, so let's go. Okay, so on the Pro side, it's a good looking design, which reminds me of a camera phone. It has these extra buttons like the shutter button here, which is quite useful. It's got a bunch of features which may come in handy, like the one you saw before, the capsule. It has fast UFS 3.1 storage, and the night mode and the colors during the day weren't half bad camera wise. Those are the pros, of course. It's a pretty well built phone too. On the cons, I have to say that we're only getting Android 13 and it's not very clear when we're getting 14, maybe 15. I have to say that overall the photo and video experience were closer to entry level rather than mid-range. We're happy to get 4K capture, but the stabilization felt a bit lacking and the price feels a bit high compared to the whole entry-level aura of the handset. Plus, the battery should have delivered more. That's one of the biggest complaints we have here. In the end, this is a good looking phone which makes you feel like it's a camera phone, and it could be considered a camera phone if you're only compared to Poco smartphones which look like camera phones, some of them. So yeah, design is the best here, maybe the storage, and I'm looking forward to a clear stance on the software updates. Till that happens, you're going to get a decent color calibration from the camera, a solid night mode, and a screen which is not exactly bad to look at if you want movies and maybe some minor gaming. That's it from us. It's interesting to see Nubia back in Europe. That's the core news here, but I look forward to more affordable prices. That's it from us. Goodbye.